All right, welcome everybody. This is Scott Embry from NAIFA Michigan, your immediate past president and membership chairperson. With me today, I have Jack, who also serves on our board. He is our secretary, correct, Jack?
Yes, sir.
Yep. So it's his first year on the board, through right into the leadership position, and he's really hit the ground running. And I wanted to bring him on today to ask about his first ever day on the Hill that he attended, which was last December. We as NAIFA Michigan went to the Hill on December 3rd, and talked to our legislators with on a couple different issues. And I wanted to just ask him how his first experience was. Um, Going through that date, and maybe educate a little bit of people that have never been there before on what it's like for a first time participate in that event. So, if you could, Jack, help me understand maybe what helped motivate you to attend this event for the first time.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. I just started getting more active in NAIFA over the last couple years. I was just a general member who went to the state conventions and paid my dues and whatnot. And I knew I was supposed to be a member because I was part of the industry. And then somebody invited me to get more active. The past president, now president again, Ben Fisher, and I said, "Sure. What do you need me to do?" And as I started getting more active, he invited me to come to Dan the Hill. And I was motivated to go because I wanted to see what it was all about. I got the newsletters. I used to get the magazine. And, I just wanted to be part of the solution and not necessarily just be a bystander in the process.
So it sounds like you were a member for a number of years now. How long have you been in the industry?
Just over 10 years.
Yeah, 10 years in the industry, and you were a good dues paying member, understanding being a member of your association is important. And then you said, "Hey, I want to get a little bit more active. How do I get active?" And you went to probably the best person that you could, Ben Fisher, and he brought up probably our most important event, which is Day on the Hill, and you decided to attend.
Yep.
All right,
That's
good.
simple.
Now, did you do any preparation for the event ahead of time, or did you get it? Did you receive enough information beforehand to feel prepared?
Well, I knew where to go and I knew sort of what was going to happen. I didn't necessarily know the details of what the day was going to be like until I showed up. And, I would think anything in this industry is kind of like that, right? I can't sit there and study all day, or I won't make any sales, right?
Yeah.
Um, it's the same thing here. You really just got to show up and see what it's all about. Like I thought I knew what it was going to be like just from, the emails and stuff like that. I knew where the park, and I knew to wear a suit. But other than that, I really had to, I really didn't know what it was going to be like until I showed up.
Yeah. Okay. Um, so I guess to piggyback on that, what do you think NAIFA Michigan could do better to help educate somebody who's never been before, to maybe help, I guess, help them understand what the expectations are of the event?
Well, I think we just need to get more people to show up. You know, we just need to encourage more people to come because once you're there, you'll realize that our legislators really don't know that much about our industry. So it's not very challenging to do the activities that are asked of you that day. It's actually really simple. It's pretty relaxed and it's not a fast-paced day. Most of the day is not very fast-paced.
Mhm.
It's just, having the courage to show up and is an organization. I think we just need to keep encouraging people to come. And if you're out there listening to this and you've never been to one, you just need to show up and see what it's all about. And you'll want to go back.
So what information, did you receive when you got there that made you feel a little bit more comfortable? Like, how did the day progress for you from when you got there? You're like, all right, I figured out where to park. I showed up with my suit on. What was next?
Well, once you're there, everything's, relatively organized. And, getting to talk to the legal team or the lobbyist before the day begins. It kind of connects a lot of dots. I'm not coming from the legal world. So, for me, I didn't really have a big understanding of what a lobbyist was. And I didn't understand the office layout of our capital in Michigan. So just, going on my first appointment with a legislator cleared up everything. And having a lot of, NAIFA members there that were doing their fifth or 10th day in the Hill, is actually pretty easy to figure out what you're supposed to do. I mean, throughout the day, they make the schedule for you. Kay, our state executive, does a phenomenal job at, kind of herding cats, if you will, because we're coming in from all different parts of the state. And you get a schedule. They provide lunch. I mean, you really don't have to do a ton of prep work other than maybe getting familiar with a couple of our, um, legislative asks.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, to just kind of I guess recap on that, before everyone shows up, the appointments are made ahead of time. Kay selects a few people around the state to make appointments with legislators around the state. Then our members show up, and then we try to pair the members from their district to go meet with their representative, and then bring along a couple others with them. So we go as teams. You're not just going as one person. And if no one is available, then we do send a lobbyist with you to those meetings. And beforehand, you get a list of probably 3 or 4 different talking points in regards to legislative activities that are already on the books, whether there's something in committee or there's a bill already on the floor. We help explain the pros and cons of those that are going on in our position, whether we're in favor of them or we want to ask for amendments or if we completely oppose them and we give our reasons why. Um, so all that's already prepped for you. Your talking points are you're briefed on the talking points before you go out to your meetings. And we're there to answer any questions that you may have. And obviously, if you're there for the first time, we're not going to just send you an appointment by yourself. You're going to go with a seasoned day on the Hill attendee to help manage those. And what I've found is in a lot of those meetings is that you might agree on a lot of the talking points already. So like that's almost a mute point. But it's building relationships with that legislator because you don't know where they're going to advance in their career in the Lansing legislature. At one point you could have a really good relationship with a legislator that goes on to be the governor of the state at some point, or maybe even like the Speaker of the House, the leader of the Senate. So building those relationships are important. So, Jack, walk me through your first legislative appointment. Like, how did that?
Sure. Yeah, so when I got there, I got to look over some of the talking points, which was super helpful because I don't typically follow politics, especially state politics. So seeing those helped a lot. It was also nice because being in the industry, uh, you can understand why we're asking for the things we're asking for. So my first appointment, I was paired up with one of our lobbyists and I followed them. They knew exactly where the legislator's office was because they're there all the time. Um, but in our state capitol, there's really a couple sections or buildings where everybody seems to have their offices. And it was nice having people that knew where they were. So I followed them. They talked to the staffer. We had an appointment already set. So the interesting thing is, there's a staffer or two different administrative people that help each state legislator. And they kind of take turns manning that front desk. So when somebody comes in, they'll tell you if they're available, because sometimes they're not. They'll, make sure that the schedule's right. On our first appointment, there was a scheduling conflict because these legislators kind of get pulled in multiple directions, even though they're using their calendar. But we were able to wait and they did show up and we did have our conversation. And For my first appointment, I really didn't say anything. I introduced myself, shook my hand, and I sat there and shut up. And the lobbyist did all the heavy lifting, but I was really able to see how simple it is. Number one. Number two, you're right about the future governor thing. There was some younger, uh, elected officials. I was surprised to see people are winning, a popularity contest in their 30s and 40s. I thought all the legislators were going to be a little more mature. So I could certainly see how we might have crossed paths with some future governors and stuff like that. Um, but after the first one, I felt like I could have done them on my own. I mean, they weren't too complicated because if you can relate, if you're an insurance agent or a financial advisor, it's pretty easy to relate to the legislation. And most of these people, they have law degrees or MBAs and things. A lot of them really don't understand our industry. They understand whatever industry they came from, and we're one of many groups that are in their district, their constituency. So even a new agent knows more about our problems than a 30-year senator, in my opinion. Because if they've never been in our shoes, they've never been stood up on an appointment, they really don't know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, good. Were there any unexpected challenges besides maybe scheduling conflicts here and there that you faced throughout the day or?
there was one where we had the appointment booked and I had two back to back. So after one, I head back to our main room where we kind of hung out between appointments. We had our coffee and stuff there and lunch. And I get the other person that I'm going to the next appointment with, and we were just going to make it. So we're power walking through the building, and then on their office, there was a sign saying, "Oh, our office has been moved to," and the new address was in another building. It was actually at uh, just outside the actual chamber in the other building.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we got like 2 minutes. We're not going to make it. Well, I'm with the lobbyist. And the lobbyist is like, no, I know a shortcut. We're not supposed to go this way, but let's see if anybody stops us. So me and this guy, suits and ties, we're power walking. It's 20 degrees outside, acting like we know where I don't know where I'm going, but we're trying to look important so security doesn't stop us because we're going like through the back doors and stuff. And he gets me right to the door of where the person is, and they're not there. But we get a staffer, and we go over our talking points. And this staffer was some young guy right out of college. He didn't know anything about our industry. Um, I don't think he knew the middle name of his congressional person, but he felt so bad that we had to jump through all those hoops and we had an appointment that afterwards he gave me a prize. He could this the lobbyist is not allowed in the chamber. There's some sort of rule on that, but I guess I was. So he actually took me into the chamber and I got to see the actual House and Senate floor before I left.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty cool. And, a lot of these people, you see them on TV and stuff, but they're just like you and me. They're just representing their backyard.
Yeah. Well, that's actually a pretty good story. I remember too, I was meeting in uh, the, I had a meeting in the Capitol building that day with one of the senators, and there was some kind of union there that was unhappy about something. They were doing all kinds of chants and pounding on the floor and all that kind of stuff. It was kind of crazy. Um, I mean, other than that, was there anything meaningful or memorable that you remember from that day?
Well, I would say there's three things that kind of stuck with me. One is getting to see the House floor and the Senate floor, and seeing how young and how relatable a lot of these elected officials are. We got to eat lunch with them, and I'm sitting next to some guy who he was a farmer and a builder before he got elected. Didn't go to law school, didn't have an MBA, so he didn't fit that media stereotype, right? He's just some guy, and he's like, so what do you really want to get out of this? I'm like, well, and I went over this couple talking points, and he wasn't on my roster to talk to that day. I was just eating tacos next to the guy,
Hmm.
and he's like, well, that makes sense. But he was on one side of the aisle that just happened to jive with that idea. And at the other end of our table at lunch was someone on the other end of the aisle who didn't always agree with that. And he's like, listen, if it was up to me, sure. He's like, but the person on the other end of this table won't vote with me no matter how I vote. And it's like, it puts it all into perspective. So for me, the big takeaways was how cool it was just to be there. Two, really how young and impressionable some of these people are. You think they're all set in their ways, but they're really not. And the third thing was getting to see how this all works, right? We always hear about like different groups having different interests in how legislation is made. Because when these people win elections, it doesn't mean that they know every industry in their district. So it's up to us to go talk to them and explain to them what it's like to be in our shoes so they know, what legislation might help or hurt us in the industries in their districts, because that's their job, is to represent the people in their district. Beforehand, I reached out to a couple of my legislators here in my area just to try to see if I can get on their schedule. And I got on one of their schedules. Um, so that's something I didn't mention earlier, but if you really wanted to get a little bit more active than just signing up and showing up, you could try to book your own meeting with your own elected official, uh, because that's the person that would be wanting your vote
Yeah.
when they reelect, right?
Well, yeah, and then you typically have a good understanding of a lot of their constituents too, because I'm guessing you work with a lot of people in your community that are also, so you're helping his constituents as well. So would you say your perspective changed a little bit about um, advocacy and policy engagement?
Oh yeah, because before I mean, I paid my dues because I knew there was a expense to operating NAIFA, but I didn't really know like where the money went because I didn't care enough to look into it. I mean, I just figured, lawyers have to join the bar association. Law enforcement joins the Fraternal Order of Police. I have an insurance license. I should join NAIFA. I mean, it wasn't really like let's peel back and find out why. And then after going, you can see why membership is important. Why, giving when you can is important.
Yeah.
If you can afford the dues, if you can afford to donate to PAC, and if you can afford to roll up your sleeves and show up to these things, um, it is important. And if you're a career financial advisor or agent, especially if you want your kids to be in this industry, you certainly want to at least go to bat for the industry when you can. If it's time, talents, or treasures, whatever you can afford to give, it'll help. And you may not see it firsthand, but the fact that we can afford lobbyists to go fight on our behalf is pretty powerful. Um, it's more powerful than a online petition or whatever we could try to, put together without that support. It's certainly important.
Yeah.
And if anybody's joining NAIFA and they're new and they want to see what it's all about, Day in the Hill is a
Yeah.
good way to do that.
Yeah, and we're not only representing our industry, we're there representing our clients. We're the voice for them because the legislators could make some grandiose movement where they think they're doing better for their people, and we're there saying, no, 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 hold it for a second here, because there's a Rubik's cube of when you make a decision, how things now get altered, maybe over here, and we can offer those blind spots to them as well. So we're not just representing ourselves as an industry. Um, we're trying to make a better industry for us is a better industry for our clients as well. So would you say you'd attend this event again?
Absolutely. And not only do I want to go to another one, I think next time I go, I might want to grab a junior agent and bring them along with me.
Yeah,
And I think that that would be a good way to encourage participation is if you're going to come and you're in any type of leadership position or you own a insurance agency or anything of that nature, um, grab one or two of your new people and pick them up that morning and go.
yeah, I agree.
Because yeah, I don't think we could have too many people.
No, you can't. And that's the legislators know our lobby firm pretty well, and they might deal with a few people maybe on our government affairs committee, and so they get to know NAIFA Michigan that way. But our day on the Hill is really a day to show the groundswell underneath all of that, and it makes our position a lot more stronger if they see how many people show up at this event. If we only have, 400 members in Michigan and only 10 people show up to this event, the legislators are going to be like, well, I guess they don't really care or whatever. But if we can get 100 people there, um, a third of our membership to go take the full day out of their office to go do this, then hey, this must be important. It just shows the passion that we have, and it's the more people we have there, the better. So that'll we'll wrap it up here, but I just want to let everybody know that our next day on the Hill is scheduled. So if you are inspired to come and experience the day on the Hill, whether it's your first time or 10th time, we'd still love to have you there. It's April 23rd in Lansing. We have the Mackinac room booked in the house building. So again, that's April 23rd. You show up in the morning. We'll have some bagels and coffee and juice and stuff, and our lobbyists will go over the talking points of the day. We'll pair you up with somebody who's done this before, if you've never done this before, and you'll go out and run your appointments. You'll probably run depending on how many appointments we get scheduled, but maybe you'll meet with 3 or 4 different legislators individually in their offices. You'll be there with us for lunch. We serve lunch. We generally get a nice taco bar spread where legislators and staff is also invited. So you're going to have lunch with legislators and staff to chat and break bread and build those relationships further. So again, Jack, thanks for joining me. Thanks for sharing your experience. I'm glad it was a good one for you, and
Absolutely.
I hope it encourages other people to come join us in the future. And I hope to see you all there on April 23rd, 2025 for our next day on the Hill. Thanks again, Jack.
Thank you, Scott.